Okay, hello there. My name's Sir Aaron, and today I thought I'd just do a quick video kind of showing some of my processing and planning for running sessions of Agora. Today is the, what is it? 24th of October, and in about an hour and a half, I'll be running session 3 of my Hex Gratia campaign. And I have so far this week done basically zero planning for the upcoming session, and that's sort of my preferred method. That might sound a bit lazy, I don't know, but I've designed Agora in a way that suits my GMing style, such that I can get away with a very small amount of planning before each session. Part of that is because Agora is a very player-driven game, and so the players will be the ones that mostly introduce the scenes and mostly introduce the roles that they want to be performing. But that doesn't mean that the GM or the FC, or facilitator as I call it in Agora, doesn't have doesn't do anything. So I thought I'd start by, and this was something that came up during the wrap-up session in session 2, where one of the players wasn't quite sure what my process would be for sort of revealing or responding to some of the roles and having consequences play out. So I thought I would just try to show off what I do on a weekly basis before each session starts. So typically, I think this might take longer than it usually does for me because I'm recording it and like explaining my process. But typically, this only takes about half an hour, maybe an hour at most. So I think I'll start by basically just showing off the duties of the facilitator. Where is that? Here. So this is in Obsidian, and so the facilitator is very similar to the game master in a lot of other role-playing games. The main reason I call it facilitator is because I have a sort of secondary arbitration point called the peers, which is every other player at the table, and that kind of de-emphasizes the authority of the GM. So I've renamed it to facilitator, which feels a lot better for me. But in essence, a facilitator's main duties are quite similar to those of a GM. So I'll just read through them. So facilitator's main duties are to manage the game by pitching it to the other players, organizing when to play, encouraging a dialogue with them out of game or between sessions, playing the world, playing the world and authoring the scenarios that the player characters will find themselves in by planning for various outcomes, coming up with new plot hooks and story threads, and role-playing as any creatures or characters that aren't portrayed by the other players, i.e. playing non-player characters. Interpreting the player's intentions and responding accordingly by describing the environments and the situations that the characters find themselves in, and by creating consequences for their actions once the objectives are clear. Directing and moderating play, controlling the pace of each scene, determining when to roll dice and which abilities and jobs to use, setting the difficulties, and so on. And then officiating over new rulings when someone tries to do something that isn't covered by the rules that have already been written, or by any previous house rules you've made. And then also to challenge every character's principles and to make them push for their agenda with almost every role. So in the planning stage, and I haven't written any direct advice for this yet, so this video will be the sole piece of advice that I'm giving out at the moment. At the moment, the only real things that I've said that the FC has to do during planning is challenge or play the world and challenge principles. So playing the world is kind of what you're always doing as FC, and challenging principles is like how you make sure that every role matters. So yeah, I guess a quick recap of what happened last session is that where are we? Yeah, so there was about 5 or 6 roles last session. We met a few NPCs using links tests. Let's see, we had a big executive pull funding from Meat Corp over sort of ethical concerns. We have a sort of asphalt movement started among some of the Meat Corp workers, though that is very much in its sort of nascent form. So I think that will need so I guess I'll mark sort of which ones I feel are not quite done. I think this one will sort of play out by itself. So I'll put a sort of what do I do? I'll put a circle here. So this will play out by itself probably. I think this one will need more work, so I'll put a star there. We discovered that on about 10 years ago, Meat Corp like accidentally dissolved some alien whale-like species on another planet while they were trying to terraform it, and it was a like ecological disaster that got covered up, and most people have forgotten about it now. But that's been sort of rediscovered, and some effort was put into basically what's the word? Some effort was put into sort of spreading that news around again, and trying to get the news to coincide with the sort of announcement of the funding being pulled, and also to help grow the sort of grassroots movement to organize a strike. So I think this one may also play out by itself. Although I realized after the session the way that I the way that I kind of set up that role was maybe wrong, at least according to my own rules. So I made this a group check, and as I've thought about it over the week, I feel like I probably should have made it a task, a full task. But never mind. We also have Bingo, who was an NPC that was acquired with a Lynx role, who Kingfisher, one of our players, basically decided they wanted to see Bingo show up more as an NPC. So I'm going to put a star for that one too. And these two, I think, will end up being linked. And I think that'll be important. And then, yes, one of the sort of consequences, one of the sort of bad things. So there was a lot of success last session, but one of the bad things was that sort of some gossip about Hex was leaked by Ilya, one of the player characters. Or not so much gossip, but like a piece of gossip was confirmed to be true. So that was really the only failed roll last session. And then the stuff on this side is stuff that we learnt about the characters and the world, but is not necessarily something that I need to respond to. So yeah, that's sort of what happened last session. So what's going to happen this session? Well, I think we also need to look at the player character's principles before we can really decide that. So, as I said, the other thing that a facilitator does is tries to challenge each player character's principles and make them push for their agenda with every roll. So these are the character sheets, and I think for the sake of this video, I'll zoom in quite a lot, because we only really care about these, the principles. So Carl's principles are that he will develop Bingo as an asset for future plans with Meat. He will ensure that Meat does not get to inhabit the new world by sabotaging them. He will always have his research done before speaking on anything, and he will always have his goose with him, which is like a little robot goose thing that I am still unsure how he is going to use. And his creeds are: nature doesn't make mistakes, and the Emperor will stop me if they disagree with my actions. Cassie's are: ensure that the mission doesn't fall back and affect Sybil negatively. Ensure that Cassie gets into the portal. Succeeding on the mission should make that easier. Overspeak and remain adamant. Work like your life depends on it. Always either consult the Emperor or my dad, who in this case is a giant space nebula, before making any big decisions. And those who have not worked for Meat should not speak on Meat. And then the principles here are: leaving Hex was the right choice. This is for Ilya, I should say. Leaving Hex was the right choice, and I can prove it by being chosen for the mission. I'm going to get Cassie to stop referring to me as a failure. This is an interesting one, and this is a case where I kind of don't have to do anything to challenge that principle, because the players will challenge each other on it. Stop what I'm doing when my biorhythmic stress alarm sounds. Speak out when I see someone being silenced. Oh, that's a new one. That's good. Hex doesn't care about anyone else, but the rationalists do. I should trust their plans, and people are inherently good. So to some degree or another, my role as FC is to look at each of these things and see if I can make space, I guess, in my session plan to effectively present a scene or a scenario in which something is going against these principles in some way, something that makes them question whether their principles are true, especially their creeds. And I think it is the creeds that are the ones that the FC really needs to worry about. So goals are the things that players will sort of push for themselves. Habits are the things that are kind of halfway between just character building and they can get you in trouble, and they can get you that you can be rewarded for certain things with habits. They're probably the weakest part of the principles system at the moment, and they're a bit blurry in terms of what you use them for. So I may need to rethink habits in the future, but if I wanted to challenge Ilya's habits, I could do something that, for example, that makes their biorhythmic stress alarm sound whilst they're doing something important, and see if, if they bite and follow the habit, then it might get them in trouble, or it might, cause further problems for them. And that then works as like a way of, what's the word? Like, it works for them to then, like, they get rewarded for it, but it also counts as challenging their habit. Creeds are the ones that I really need to be challenging, because the way that you earn fidelity in this game, which is the sort of strongest meta currency in the system, is if you have had your creeds challenged and they remain adamant even afterwards, that's how you earn fidelity. And it's usually over many sessions that you get challenged on it multiple times, and then at the end of an arc or a small or a chapter, then you might get fidelity. So, yeah, I think it'll be the creeds that I'm looking at mostly. So nature doesn't make mistakes. The emperor will stop me if they disagree with my actions. So, in a way, the way that you challenge a creed is sort of by presenting something that does the opposite of that creed. So I could do something that really looks like nature made a mistake. I could do something that will make the emperor step in. Yeah, this is maybe a slightly badly written creed, but my thinking here is I could do something where the emperor steps in on something really minor that, like, Carl was not expecting the emperor to step in on. For Carl's habits, I think sort of probably two ways to challenge these would be, for the goose would just be to say to have some situation where Carl isn't allowed to enter a building or go somewhere specific with his goose, either because they don't allow robots, or they're, very I don't know. It could be a number of things that would disallow Carl from bringing his goose with him, and then he'll have to make a choice. Do I go with these people, or do I, sit this one out? That's maybe a slightly bad idea, because you don't want to, like, have the player then punished for having, like, you want them to suffer for their habits sometimes, but you don't want to exclude them from the game as a result of that suffering. Always have my research done before speaking on anything. This is another weird one. And again, it probably speaks to the fact that habits are slightly badly written at the moment. So I'll think about it. I mean, habits do have another use, which is just that you can use them a little bit like specialties to get, like, bonuses, or to allow you to establish facts on rolls, or to do, like, little flashback scenes. So always having his research done could be one of those habits where he just, he has a flashback to some case when he's doing research, which could be fun. Overspeak and remain adamant. Work like your life depends on it. Yeah, I think overspeak and remain adamant would be one where I can challenge Cassie whenever whenever I do feel that she has overspoken, and have someone say, like, you don't know what you're talking about, or whatever, and let Cassie engage with that habit if Kill the Scribe wants to, and then basically dig them a hole. Work like your life depends on it. That one might almost be a creed, actually, because that one might be easier to challenge as a creed if it's like your work like your life depends on it. If you really believe that, then my way of challenging it would be to say, you know, actually your life doesn't depend on your work. And like trying to show Cassie ways in which their life can be meaningful outside of their work. That would be a really interesting way of challenging it, actually, if it was a creed. So I might talk to Kill the Scribe about moving that to be a creed, actually. And then, let's see. Creeds are always either consult the Emperor or my dad before making big decisions. See that? Yeah, and then that seems more like a habit. I think actually I will swap these for Kill. Because I think that one reads much more like a habit than a creed. So yeah. Those who have not worked for meat should not speak on meat. So I guess my way of challenging this creed would be to have some characters talking about meat and making very valid points about meat that are like undeniable. Even if they are not personally experienced with working for meat, they will still know what it's like through through the experience, reading about or hearing about the experiences of others. And I can have characters show up and talk about that stuff, and see how Cassie responds. Hex doesn't care about anyone else but the rationalists do. I should trust their plans. Now, this is a nice, easy one to challenge. In fact, both of these creeds are nice and easy to challenge because all I have to do is present situations or suggest ways in which the rationalist plan is not completely clean, let's say. And the way that I challenge people are inherently good is by introducing some antagonists that are inherently not good. And it's up to it, and this is the thing, it's up to Ilya to then decide, if I introduce an evil character, it's up to Ilya to decide for themselves, is that person actually evil, or is that person actually like a bad person, or and if at the end of the campaign arc they still believe that, then they'll get fidelity. So if they are true to their creeds, then they get fidelity for it. Cool. Okay. So let's write some of that down. So I think where were we? So yeah, I think probably yeah, I will basically write each of their names. So we've got Carl, Cassie and Ilya. And yeah, so yeah, I think I'll basically write that's a bad color. What's a good color? Green? Yeah, okay. So to challenge Ilya, we need to like show someone being silenced. We need to sound bio alarm. We need to show that rationalists' plan is flawed. And we need to show someone not inherently good. For Cassie, we need to call out over speaking. We need to add a time pressure on big decisions so that if Cassie wanted to consult the Emperor or their dad, then it would cut into the amount of time they have. And not all of these will come up necessarily in the next session, but it's good for me to actually write these down properly because they've been a bit nebulous so far. Work like your life depends on it. Okay, so like show that life has meaning beyond work. And show some non-meat workers with good points about meat. And then for Carl, we want... I don't think I can actually challenge the always have research done, apart from... In a way, it's kind of similar to this one. So I guess I'll just write, you know, add time pressure again. We want location / scenario where Goose can't go. And we want make nature making, or show nature making a mistake somehow. That one's going to be quite hard to do, I think, because I think I suggested this as a creed for Carl, and this is something that I genuinely personally believe. So this will be hard for me to challenge, I reckon. Emperor will stop me if they disagree with my action. So I think here I need to have like Emperor disagrees with and tries to stop something banal, right? Because that's the sort of thing that I think Carl would disagree on with the Emperor. The implication, at least the way he's written it, I feel, is like if he's doing something bad, like morally bad or you know, a bit out there, if the Emperor comes and stops him, then that's an indicate, you know, then he's like, okay, fair enough, yeah, that was bad. But if the Emperor comes and stops him on something really minute, it might make him think twice about the authority of the Emperor. But we'll see. We'll see. Cool. All right. Yeah. So that's stuff we want to challenge. So this is for challenge principles. And then for playing the world, we want, I think we need to do more stuff with the like grassroots movement, with the Voice, which is the sort of anarcho-communist faction. And we need to do, I think we need to get Hex involved in some way. So probably we ended last session basically with them spending a few days over the course of this check, this group check, basically putting out lots of media and stuff to get some buzz around the topics that they wanted to have as talking points. So I think maybe the first place to start the session with I think we need to start the session with the like strike organizers. Users. Probably with bingo. And it would be good if we could link in some of these things. So bingo is Carl's VinPC. We've had several days pass, and yeah, I think it needs to be something like there's some kind of hiccup in getting the strike organized, or in finding a location for a strike, or oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah, so I think what I can do with this is basically tie together the showing that the rationalist plan is flawed, and possibly the time pressure. And possibly something about non-meat workers, but and maybe something about the emperor disagreeing. But I think that the thing that I want to do here is basically have there be some difficulty in organizing the strike. In fact, let me just delete that. Okay. Doing this live. But hopefully it gives you some insight into my, like, I'm thinking, and then I'm trying to show and write what I'm thinking. So there may be some dead air moments, but hopefully this is useful. So yeah, I think I will say difficulty in organizing strike with bingo because meat because they can't get authorization from the emperor. For some reason. Like, I think this would normally be possible. So I'll say for unknown reason. And if they strike unauthorized, then they'll lose their jobs. That is, meat will just fire them. And the time pressure is that this is let me restructure this so that it's a bit cleaner. Okay. So yeah, so we've got those two, and then the third thing is news of this from Bingo. Or of this complication. Only breaks with a day to go. Before exec. Okay. So that ties a whole bunch of things together and should probably be quite a meaty first scene. Or a first couple of scenes, maybe. And I could probably just leave it at that. Genuinely, I think, like, with the way that this game works, a scene can take an hour or so in some cases. But also, like, there's enough fallout or enough enough consequences that come out of individual roles that just dealing with this problem will probably generate its own stories and its own stuff to then deal with. I do think I want, like, one other thing though, which is I wonder if I can link these two in some way. I can't actually remember exactly what the gossip about Hex was. I think we kind of just hand waved it and said, "Oh well, Hex do bad stuff." Or something, and like that's a thing. I genuinely can't remember what it was that we decided was interesting about the gossip. If someone else I guess I'll ask that in the session. If someone does remember what it was about, then we can stick with the canon. But if nobody remembers what it was about, then I think I would want to make up something. And I would say that, and I would use this to try to challenge nature makes mistakes, and show someone being silent. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, nature makes mistakes. Someone being silenced. Life has meaning. Okay. And I sort of want to link it in with these two. So actually, let's color code these properly. So what I'm doing here, just for visual demonstration more than anything, I suppose, I'm just basically making sure that the colors up here match with the colors that are on the next page. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so orange, I think, yeah, we want something about hex, something about the whales dissolving, something about nature, something about life having meaning, and something about people being silenced. That's kind of a lot to all tie into one thing, but let's think. What if the hex mages, oops, so I think the process of putting out the information is like all of the media buzz that they created at the end of last session. I think that's going to get out of control. I think that's going to move beyond something that they are able to like continue to focus the attention on things. And I think the person who Ilya spoke to, who gave them the little nugget of information that they then used to discover the stuff about the whales, and who they sort of leaked this knowledge of hex about, I think that person, who I don't think we actually named, is going to sort of see the stories about meat and the stuff to do with the whale that they had just been talking to someone about the day before, and kind of add to the discourse the stuff that Ilya had mentioned about hex, and then that gets hex involved in this debacle as well. But maybe not in the way that is super useful. Or, you know, not in a way that's positive, that has a net positive effect for the plan of everyone else. So how would I write this? I think we have to say like hex was involved in the terraforming process. that dissolved the whales. And on the surface, that seems like it would probably be a very good thing for their plan, because that throws Hex in hot water as well. So that might be a bad route to take it. Let me think about that for a second. I think what I want to say is, I'm trying to show a situation where nature makes mistakes. So basically, that Hex magic is considered nature, right? Hex magic is part of the universe. I think actually this one about someone being silenced ties more into the first scene. And maybe this second one, not inherently good, ties into the second one. Unless, I don't know how we would show that. I was about to say, unless, it's like someone wants to talk about the fact that Hex was involved, but they're being silenced. So I guess I'll put 2 lines under this one, because it could go either way. Okay, yeah. I think this is the beat that I want. Someone wants to talk about it, but can't. What if it's like Hex discovered that when the whale juice goes through a hex portal, It like imbues it with something, or yeah, like it imbues a drinker with like boosted psychic powers. And this is like secret information. And I think the implication of that is that the whales. Yeah, I think this is our main point. And I've just realized this is quite a hard color font to read, so let's make it let's make it green. Oops. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Implication is that the whales were sapient because this is going to go down a dark and weird route, but it kind of makes sense to me now. Because, like, early hex experiments showed that do I want to go the cannibal route? Oh gosh. What are our triggers? What did we say we don't want in this game? Rated teen. No torture, no racism, no slavery. I mean, in a weird sort of way, if these whales are sapient and still alive when they're in the juice form, then that's kind of a form of torture. We want to be the good guys. We want to see communities enforce their vision of justice in different ways. We want quiet rebellions within a utopia and dystopia. Um, I'm not sure if I like this. It's taking it in a slightly weird direction, and it's also throwing Hex under the bus for a failed roll, which really I shouldn't be doing. Um, yeah. Uh, as fun as this might be to explore, I think it might be too much of a distraction away from everything else that's going on right now in the campaign world. Um, and I don't. I mean, I can see where I've come from with this. Right? It's like, if this is true, if eating human brains boosts your psyche and that's natural, that's a part of nature, right? That's kind of horrifying. But nature doesn't make mistakes, right? That's just how the psychic magic works in this universe. Is it though? Do I want that to be how it works? I don't know. What I mean, what that doesn't do, that doesn't paint every hex mage as a cannibal. Um, what it says is that the foundations of this technology and the science that the hex magic is based on is like some very very morally poor, like, scientific discoveries, similar to, the earliest discoveries in psychology. Right, there were a lot of really effed up experiments that happened in the early 50s and so on, or even before that. But actually, a lot of those early experiments have been discredited in a lot of ways since. Um, Not just on the basis that they were like immoral, but also on the basis of that they were like poorly conducted in the first place. I think in this case, it's maybe. It may be a step too far, and I mean, I don't have to say this explicitly. It could just be an implication, but I think if this is going to be a beat, a talking point, and, like, there's a whistleblower who wants to come out and actually talk about this, then it kind of needs to be explicitly said. If that's the direction it's going, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm gonna delete this. The secret the secret idea that did not make it into the session. If you've watched this video, then now you know. Well, yeah, I think that's probably still useful, because not every idea is a good idea, and it's probably good to show that, you know, you can let go of your bad ideas. So, yeah, it's 1:45. I need to get a drink, and cool off a little bit before I start the session in 15 minutes. So, I'll keep mulling this over, right? It'll probably a lot of role playing is about improvising, and it's possible that stuff from this opening scene will, like I said, this opening scene, this one scene could be enough to like fill out the whole session, and if it is, then great. But it may also be that like either during a break or just while we're playing, I think of a better idea and a better way of challenging these orange underlined principles. I think in some ways, really, what I want to be doing is have the gossip about Hex somehow reflect badly on the rationalists instead of reflecting badly on Meat, because the rationalists want to use this current, media stunt against Meat as their excuse to step up and be um, be the better company to lead the expedition to the New World. So, yeah, especially because this was a failed role that actually got this stuff to appear. What I was writing here was like way too much stuff that would be throwing Hex under the bus as well, and I don't think that that would be way too beneficial for the players. So I need something that goes more directly against their plans. So yeah, I'll mull that over. I'll think about it. It may be that I don't come up with anything, and that's fine too, honestly. But yeah, hopefully that was an interesting insight into the creative process and the kind of way that I do session plans. At least in a game like this. So yeah, cool. All right. So I'll leave the recording there. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. And I hope you enjoy the session when I upload it. I don't know what order I'll upload these in. I'll probably do... yeah, I'll probably upload this one and then the session one so you can see what I was planning, and then you'll see what actually came out in the session. So, yeah, see you next time.